I contracted an infection like around the heart, and when they've scanned it, they've just seen a couple of things, and they're like, he's a professional footballer. They were like, I'm not sure he's going to be able to carry on. Even like in the hospital bed, I remember it was straight to like, what am I going to do next? Through my head every time I sat down on the sofa. What am I going to do for money? Where we're going to live? What we're going to do here? What am I going to do in 10 years' time? All this kind of stuff. Wife's pregnant. If I had a few beers, it just like quieted everything down, managed to sleep a bit better. But when she'd go to bed, that was my time to drink.
Yeah.
Or when I had a Bristol City scouting role, like hotel stay, lock myself in a room, drink, like blackout, leave me alone. And then I had an argument with my wife, and I was drunk, and I went upstairs and I passed out on the bed, and I thought it was the morning, but it was like an hour later, so it was like 9 o'clock at night still. And she come up and she was like, what's going on with you? And I just broke down and just said, look, I'm hiding, drinking, I want to stop, but I don't feel like I can. And just completely broke down to her and my mum, alcohol out altogether. And honestly, since that podcast, that was like a turning point for me. I've never touched a drop since. Like, some of the people in these meetings are the most successful people, and they are the most successful people I've ever met.
Yeah.
Like millionaires, business owners, restaurant owners. There's a lot of ex-Premier League players that I've spoken to and worked with and stuff. They've got all the money in the bank, which is something that I always wanted, but they haven't got that purpose and that drive.
Right, Fraser, firstly, thanks for coming, mate. We appreciate your time, taking time out to come down and talk to us today. So I want to go right back to the beginning, to where you started at Chelsea, coming through their academy. Talk to us a little bit about that and how that was growing up at such a big, well-established Premier League club.
No, thanks for having me. Nice and local, so not too much of a journey. It was good. Really good, actually, really good. I was a Chelsea fan growing up, mad Chelsea fan. One of those that you probably see at your clubs, like the autograph hunters that get there 2-3 hours early. That was me. And then got picked up by Chelsea at the age of 9. So I had about 3 or 4 months in Sunday League football, and then straight to Chelsea. And I was like a big 9-year-old, like big forward. So I just didn't have much about me, quite slow, but bigger than most of the other kids. They picked me up there. But I remember my overriding feeling at Chelsea was like scared, like terrified of getting on the ball, terrified of making mistakes, always wanted to please the coaches. I remember a coach saying, like, I ended up moving to a centre-half because I couldn't score any goals. I remember a coach saying, like, proper defenders, like, wear black boots and shave their heads. And I went straight home and chucked my white boots away and shaved my head. So I was, like, doing anything to, like, please the coaches. Yeah. I loved it, but it was, like, a really scary environment for me as a kid, yeah.
Right. See, I wouldn't have thought that. I'd have thought, like, that would have been, like, me growing up in Preston's academy and stuff. Like, that would have been more, you'd expect Chelsea to be all just, come in, wear what boots you want, like, do whatever you want, nice and rosy, as it would be like now in the Premier League at the top level. I couldn't have expected it to be a little bit.
Was that like a fear of like not feeling good enough at the time?
Oh yeah, didn't feel good enough from the second I walked in there.
Really?
And I actually went on trial. There was 2 of us that went on trial. I went to like a Chelsea community thing, and we played against Chelsea's. So my community team played against Chelsea's under-9 team, and we got beat 14-0 or something like that. But they offered 2 of us a trial after that game. So we got beat 14-0, but we must have been running around or doing something. I remember crying my eyes out in the game, like embarrassed. But me and him went on trial, but he was a year older than me. And I was just terrified of going into an age group on my own. So I pretended that I was an under-10. So I went on trial at the under-10s at that age just to be next to my mate. And then after about a month, and I was bottom of the pile by a mile in the under-10s. But after a month, they were like, "Oh, you're not meant to be here. You're meant to be down with them boys." And that's why I said I was the biggest in the age group, because I went down with the under-9s. I was actually like a big lump and felt quite confident there. But yeah, I never felt good enough to play for Chelsea, whether that was because I was a Chelsea fan, I was in awe of the environment, all that kind of stuff. I just never, ever felt good enough. So anything I could do, whether it's picking up the cones, whether it was getting there early, whether it's doing anything, being called busy all the time, I was doing that to try and get that head start, basically.
I'm a bit jealous because if I was 10 and I went into the under-5s, so I'm a bit jealous of that. But like in school, obviously when you're playing for Chelsea, did you feel pressure regarding that as well, like being around all your schoolmates, and obviously you're this young lad who's playing for Chelsea. Did you get anyone looking at you any differently, or like looking up to you and stuff like that?
Yeah. So what age was that from until with Chelsea?
From 9 till 16.
9 till 16.
Yeah.
So all
Yeah.
through high school and stuff like that. So yeah,
That's a great question though, because I go in there and go do a lot of stuff in academies now.
Yeah.
You can see the really confident kid that wants to get on the ball. Probably when he's at school, he's a bit of a Jack the lad and gets all the attention. I was the complete opposite. So at school, like, I didn't want anyone knowing that I played for Chelsea. But when I went to secondary school, the teachers found out, and I used to get called things like superstar and here he goes. Then I was on like a day release program. So on 2 days a week, I get pulled out of lessons and go, right, your driver's outside, time to go to training. Then you get, he thinks he's too good and this. And then if you join in the playground, people are just trying to top you. So I couldn't play in the playground. And instead of being like Mr. Popular, you end up just like everyone hates you because they're jealous of you. So yeah, I had a mixed experience of it. And we used to train. We trained at Cobham, but we used to train a couple of days a week at Battersea Park, which is literally round the corner from my school. I remember I'd be training and you get kids from like my school coming and watching through the gates, like fucking hammering me through the things. He's shit, he's this, he's that, just because they were jealous of it. So I had that, like a proper mixed experience with like a bit of jealousy at school. Yeah.
Go on. What was it like in terms of education? Because obviously you've come out there for like a day to go and train. Like, did that affect you in school in any way?
In school, I just did the bare minimum.
Did you?
I wasn't like...
Always wanted to be a footballer and thought, that's my path now.
Yeah. I did the bare minimum that I could. So if I could get a C, I didn't try and get a B. Like, it was just like, right, if I can get a pass, that's good enough for me. Yeah. No interest in any other topics. No interest in anything outside of sport or football. Even sport in general. Football was the only sport I really played or enjoyed. So I didn't have anything else going on really.
You know, me and you just spoke about it then, we've done the same course. Yeah. And it talks about the programme about academies taking these young lads out of school for a day release and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on that?
It definitely shouldn't, I don't think it should be as young as it is. So I think at the minute it's like 11 or 12 if you're getting at least 1 or 2 days out of school.
What, they're taking them out that young?
Yeah, and then a lot of clubs from the age of 12 now, you actually leave school and you'll do your education program full time at a club. So at times you're near enough getting full time players from you're 12 or 13. The thing is, they'll go to like a top private school and is next to the academy, or they get tutors coming in, but they're near enough training full time from the age of like 13, 14, away from friends, away from normal, mixing
normal
with
life.
people.
You're in that bubble. You're in that bubble. Even from age 16 in a normal youth team, like me growing up, for example, from 16 to 18, your youth scholarship years, you're in that bubble from that age all the way through your career then. Yeah. So to do it even younger,
it's difficult
I
because
don't think.
Sometimes they are getting like a better standard of education, but there comes a cost with that as well, I think.
The social life of missing out with your friends that you grew up with, because I've spoken to a couple of my mates who went through that programme where they go to a school associated with the football club, that the football club puts them into that school. But then they've lost their friendships from the kids that they grew up with because they've had to move schools and stuff like that. So I think that one's a bit hard socially, but obviously with that, what comes with it is you get more time on the football pitch, more coach on the football pitch. But that's where it's a bit of a contradiction, because when them lads don't make it, or if they don't make it, they get released, then they've lost out on all the social life, all the kids that they grew up with, lost their friendships, and then they've had to deal with being that student in school that has been this footballer throughout, and then when they don't eventually make it, they have to go and start again. But all they've known is this young lad getting all these like positive things. By, if I was a kid in school, I'd love to be able to go on day release and play football. I would have loved that. But with that comes like a lot of negatives. If the worst is to happen, they don't make us a footballer.
You're sheltered, aren't you, from the outside world, really?
Yeah.
Like, they're taking you out of school, putting you in a private school, you're training, like, you've no worries whatsoever at such a young age, and it's almost a false sense of security that, look, you're going to get this private education, you're going to be a professional footballer, and we know the stats. Like, the likelihood is most of them people aren't. And I suppose then it's what we're going to talk about in a bit, the transition, the support that comes from them clubs afterwards, and whether or not that's there.
you went through a stage, obviously not feeling good enough, but you stayed at Chelsea from 9 to 16, so you really was good enough. When did you start believing that or if you did you start thinking that there's a chance that you could become a Chelsea first team player?
Nah, never.
Oh, never?
Never, honestly, never. I think I had a good year, if I remember rightly, it was like under 12s it might have been. Honestly, I felt like from day one I was bottom of the pile. So if we did a bleep test, if I didn't come last, I was like, yes, I'm not come last. We did a race. If I'd never tried to win it. It was just like, as long as I don't come last.
Just survival.
And my attitude in the game was, right, if I'm not the worst player, then I've done all right. It was never like trying to be the best player. But yeah, I had that. But when I was about 12, I had a good year. Damien Matthews was my coach, and he's now Mick Beale's assistant at Rangers, so he's a top first team coach. But he was really good for me. Like, my mum struggled to get me to training and that, and he'd pick me up and I'd spend a bit of time with him in the car. Got to know him and made me feel a bit more comfortable, made me feel wanted, like made me feel like I was good enough. I don't remember many of his sessions, but I just remember like him as a guy, like some of the words he said to me. So I had a good year then. I felt, you know what, I do feel good enough. And then I had another one, and by the time I was about 12, everyone had caught up with me. And I was now one of the smallest ones in the age group, one of the slowest ones. We started getting, Abramovich had come in now at Chelsea. We were getting Dutch lads, African lads, and they were just a different level. So I never thought I'd do it. When I was about 13, I remember I got a contract, but they said, you've made it by the skin of your teeth. So even that little comment there, I was just like, well, clearly I'm going to get released next time then, aren't I? Like, I just went in with that doubt. So I never ever felt good enough. And it was probably a relief in the end when I did get released from Chelsea. So I was like, right, I'm clinging on. Maybe I can go somewhere where I can actually look to be one of the better players. But yeah, I never ever thought I'd be a first team player at Chelsea.
So when that day come and you did get released, you didn't have any like upset feelings? You felt relieved? Yeah,
I remember having a little cry that night, and then that was it. The next day it was like gone, and I weren't even involved. Like, I don't know what it was like for you guys, but it was literally a phone call to my mum, and she just come up to me and she's like, well, that's it, no more. And I was like, and I was expecting it, but yeah. I actually say that as a funny thing. Brendan Rodgers came into Chelsea, and I was expecting to get released. It was like, right, we're going to give you decisions next week. We had a game on a Saturday, and I had an absolute worldie. And Brendan Rodgers had just come in that day. He was watching the game. Mourinho was watching the game. And he had no idea about the situation or anything. He was going to be the new youth team manager. And I remember he said something, I can't remember exact words after, but he's like, you'll do for me, or something like that after the game. And I'd had a really good game. So then I went home, like completely thinking beforehand, like I'm 100% get released, to them thinking, God, this new guy might have a little say here, and I might get one. So I had a little bit of hope going into it, but I ended up getting released. And then they invite you back in, so you can do, like they say, like if you want to keep training. I went back in once, it was just like, I can't come back here. No. Like I went in, there was like loads of new trialists. Some of the lads that had been kept on were being a bit big time. And I was just like, get me out of it.
No, you need a fresh start.
Yeah. And I went on trial at Millwall at first. And they did me one of those like extended trials. But I went there like quite low on confidence. They were a decent academy at the time, Millwall. So I went there, and then I was training with Brentford at the same time. And if you'd have told me then Brentford were going to be in the Premier League, makes my career look a bit better now. But no, we went there, and it was like, facilities wise, you could not get any different. We literally had lampposts keeping the pitch light. So by the time it got to halfway through the training session, you could hardly see the ball.
So what league was that then?
They were League One going down to League Two. Right. They just got relegated.
Yeah.
Facilities non-existent. Pitches all over the place, but I went there and I was like, this is a bit of me. Like I like the boys. Yeah. I actually quite liked that it was a bit like rough and it felt less pressure because there weren't all these big domes and machines and all that kind of stuff. I went there, I just loved it, fell in love with football again. And there literally felt like, you know what, I can be one of the first in the runs here, or try and look to be the best player here. And again, we had a really good coach, Richard Dobson, who's Gareth Ainsworth's assistant, top guy, like really good for me. And yeah, I went there and found my love again for football, really.
I think like that's so important, like nowadays, for young lads who are at these big academies, because you see it more so nowadays back than when we were younger, in terms of they get loan moves so quick now. And we see it all the time, don't we? Like young lads come from Premier League clubs into League Two, League One. They're in a different world. They've no idea what's just hit them. They've come from the fancy pitches, the £10 million training grounds and stuff, and then suddenly they're on park pitches like that with lampposts, and some days you're having to train at a school and stuff like that, get changed in a pub. Like they've just never done that before. You know what I mean? Exactly. Like they haven't done that, and that is like, for you, a good experience, I think, that probably carried you through the next few years, to have that experience so early, because you can stay at Chelsea for another 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, but ultimately, as you said, you probably weren't going to be good enough to play in the Premier League. So the fact that you've left at that time, I think, is a massive help.
And that's where we all started on these park pitches.
Yeah.
Like, it's only when you get caught up in the world of the academies and stuff that you get caught up with it. I had through like the heart stuff we'll come on to, I had a chat with Christian Eriksen when he was at Brentford, I sit down with him, and he said one of the first things he said was like, because Brentford still had that same training ground from when I was there,
right? So
if I'm going into that facility thinking, this ain't the best, like Christian Eriksen's just come from Inter Milan, he's played for Tottenham at the best training ground there is.
What's he thinking?
He literally said, he was like, just back to basic. I feel like I'm falling in love with football again, back as a kid, like, and mentioned all those things. Yeah. And it's obviously upgraded a little bit since then. They've got a new training ground now, but it was, even the top players, it's like we all started on the park pitches. Like your ego.
We didn't know anything else, did we? Yeah, and that's why we loved it.
That's what it is, the ego, isn't it?
Yeah.
And, you know, people like young lads struggle with that drop, the transition from going to a Premier League club down to a lower league where the facilities aren't what they used to, and that's where they struggle with the mentality and getting over that. But you know, you loved that, and it worked well for you.
Yeah, it did. And they got caught up in, if you're a professional, like senior professional, you have no idea really what Cat 1 and Cat 3 and all that. No. The academy lads are obsessed by it. Like it's like, oh, that's Cat 2 or that's Cat 1, and it's just this whole academy bubble. And you go in there sometimes, you just want to.
You just want to shake them. That's all you want to do. Yeah.
Because you get 25% of them that are like really switched on and eager to learn and that, and you get 75% of them that just don't care what you've got to say. They're in their own little dream world, and they're the ones that when they don't make it and they get to the age of 23, 24, they look back and go, oh, I should have done this, or I should have done that, and by then it's too late sometimes.
It's always too late, and that's exactly the purpose of what we're trying to do in it. And there'll be 50-50. There'll be 50% of people who listen, watch, and be like, they're talking nonsense, them lot. Like, I'm going to be a superstar, I'm going to do this when I finish. And there'll be the other lads, and I've met a few of them already in the last couple of weeks, young lads who've been like, you know what, I'm like going to listen to what you say. Like, I'm really going to take it on board. I've spoke to my agent, I'm going to try and do this. I've spoke to the PFA already and got on courses, and that is like enough for me. Like the fact that 50% of lads will listen is a big step forward.
You know what football's like as well. Like you'll get some lads that are like, look, who do these two think they are? Busy, this, busy, that. Like, again, they're the exact same ones that I'm talking about there. Just let them go on their own little path. But then there'll be a little section that go, actually, I'm going to take notice of this, or I might start my own podcast, or I might do this, or I might do that. And it's like you two just putting yourselves out there. Yeah. Like, that's winning already for me.
Yeah, I love getting hammered by everyone already. only put one episode, I wasn't getting hammered.
Expect it, mate. You should see some of the comments I get for the stuff I do at the minute.
I had to listen to an audiobook on the way here, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Yeah.
I thought I need that for myself.
You don't anyway, John.
Blocking out the little haters.
Yeah. I've listened to that myself.
Yeah, but like going through at Brentford then, so you've done your scholarship programme at Brentford?
Yeah, so I went in, that was... It's interesting because I had about 3 different youth team managers in that time, 3 or 4 different first team managers. Started off with Terry Butcher, and then Andy Scott was his assistant and became first team manager. And they actually really liked me. I struggled in my first year. I didn't play much as a first year scholar. I played right back at the time. They had a really good right back, so I couldn't really get in. But then the second year, new manager come in, made me captain, and moved me to centre half. And then started to like really enjoy it, become a bit of a leader in the youth team. And then at the start of my second year, literally going from hardly playing till it was the August, got named in the Carabao Cup squad at Swansea at 17. And from then I was pretty much with the first team. And it's different. Like when we were coming through, like 5 subs,
Yeah.
And, you know, now 5 can come on.
Don't realise how
10
lucky
on
they
the
are,
bench.
do they, young lads?
And
Yeah.
I'm like, there's some places that I travelled, like being,
Yeah.
it was 18th man or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That whole year I near enough spent just travelling the League Two grounds and that, but
Did you love it?
loved it.
Yeah,
Mate.
that was the
I
same.
absolutely loved it. And and again, like I was saying there, I used to get called busy for everything, but it was never a chore for me. Like I loved going and watching the first team games as a youth team player, like just wanted to be there. I didn't have any kind of social life.
Yeah.
So the other boys were off like drinking and parties and that. I had no social life. Because at school, like my mates went one way and I went the other way. So all my mates were just my Brentford teammates, basically. But I was obsessed by it. I loved football, knew every single stat, knew every single player, even at League Two level. And then probably about halfway through my second year, I started, you know, we'd have one defender on the bench and it would be me most weeks in League Two. And then we got promoted. I never made an appearance. So the next season I got my first professional contract, but we were now up to League One. And we just brought in like much better players, like really experienced players. You could have 7 on the bench at this point, but I was on the bench most weeks, but I was never coming on.
No.
Actually, I never ever came on.
Yeah.
And there's like a record that I hold at Brentford.
Really?
I swear. Someone showed me, because I still do a lot of Brentford work at Brentford now, like the most appearances on a bench without ever coming on. And the amount of times, like 17-year-old kid, 4-0 up.
Yeah.
And again, I've seen Scotty since and that. Could have just
Put
put
me
me on.
on. Put me on.
I look
Give me
now
a
and I'm
bonus
like,
or something.
I look at some of the young lads that come on now and like Johnson's paint games and stuff like that, and I'm like, I'd have done anything as that kid.
Do you know what? I say that now with the amount of subs you're allowed, how many you can make. We had to graft our balls off back in the day just to be on the bench.
Yeah.
Then to get a minute at the end, you go home and celebrate playing that 1 minute. Now these boys are playing 90 minutes in this competition and getting half an hour at the end of the games. When like I've been at clubs in the past where young lads don't even train with us, and then they're thrown on the bench on a Saturday. Like I had to have a good couple of weeks training with the first team before I was thrown in.
See,
like,
it's hard that because you're looking. I know I've seen a lot of like undeserved debuts like coming through, but then on the other hand, you're like, well, it's probably good that they're getting a bit of a chance, but there's a bit of a balance there. Yeah, like Ben Hamer killed me once because I remember like we were playing a game and I was just about to come on, literally on the side, shirt off. So all them little things is like a 17-year-old. It's like, I'm going to be on FIFA. I'm going to have a Wikipedia page. I'm going to do it. All my mates are there. And keeper's like gone, just give me like a couple of minutes, and like felt his hammy. So I've had to like sit back down. And then that was it. Like on the whole rest of the game, they were just waiting for him to see if he was going to be fit. So
I guess he had to sub
I just stood there. But yeah, never made a first team appearance for Brentford, which I'm a little bit gutted about.
Yeah. So then you had a few clubs, didn't you, like after that, and then settled, it seems to me, like at Stevenage, really, where I think you had your longest time there, didn't you? 3 years?
Yeah.
And is that really where, like, because from me, from the outside looking at Stevenage, it looks like quite a close-knit family club. Is that where you'd say you had your most highs and stuff like that? Really sort of settled? And
yeah, it's where I felt most at home at that point, So I left Brentford, I went into non-league. I went to AFC Wimbledon, and we got promoted to League Two. Then I had a bad cruciate injury, so I went down to Conference South actually, and I knew I had to play 70, 80 games for someone to see me. And Luton bought me in the January window,
right.
And then we went up with Luton, but again, I never really felt at home at Luton. I was playing for the first 7 or 8 months I was there, and then we got promoted. They brought more players in, and John still was manager. I just didn't click with him. And I had a year left on my contract, and he transfer listed me. And I was like, I've just come from non-league to get this move, and now I'm gonna have to go back to non-league. Yeah. And it's funny, I went to my mate's wedding, and I saw Teddy Sheringham walk in, and I was like, oh, Teddy Sheringham, obviously like hero of mine growing up. I looked at the table thing, and he was on the next table to me, and I was like really shy, and then until I had a few beers, but I never went up to him. And he come up to me that night. He's like, Fraser Franks, and I was like, yeah. He went, I've seen you're on the transfer list. So I've just taken the job at Stevenage. So I literally like negotiated a contract at a wedding.
This wedding,
like, 10 Peronis deep at this wedding. But no, I had a good chat with him that night, and then we had to do a few things, and then he ended up bringing me into Stevenage.
Oh my God, that's mental.
So networking at a wedding ended up getting you a deal.
That's what we need to do. That's the tip of the day. Out of contract, lads, in the summer. Get yourself to a wedding.
There we go. So I thought I was going to have to go to non-league, but Luton were in League 2, Stevenage were in League 2. I'd take a bit of a pay cut, but I didn't have to move or anything like that. So I was like, let me go there. And he was actually like, I want you to start. So that was a big thing for me. I didn't want to go and be a squad player like I was at Luton.
Nice.
But enjoyed it at Stevenage.
Yeah, so that was like, are you single at this time?
No, I met my wife when I was at Luton, so I'd been with her for about a year.
Right.
So
So you were down there, obviously, with her, living together.
Yeah.
And then Stevenage, that was in League 2. Did you get promoted to League 1?
No,
that
we
time?
stayed in League 2.
No, you stayed in that
year.
year. So what was that period like in terms of, like, I'm just trying to get an idea of, like, you finally spending a decent amount of time in one club, like, because for me, I've moved about here, there and everywhere, and there feels a different sense of like a club when I'm there for more than 2 years, for example. You know the community, you know the club, you feel comfortable in yourself, and I think that can say a lot about your performance. Like, what do you think your performances were a lot better for being stable at a club for longer than maybe previously at the others?
Yeah, I think so. I went to Stevenage and I literally had a name. I was like, I need to play 100 games for a club. So I was moving like season after season. I felt like I was moving. I had 18 months here, a year there. So I was like, I need to play 100 games for a club. And I remember the day I signed, I was like, that's what I want to do. And it is like the little things. Like I felt like they accepted me at Stevenage. Like little things like giving me the number 5 shirt. I'd always been like number 15 or 16, and even then you feel like you get that first day of the season.
It does mean a lot, yeah.
I feel like I'm going to be third choice here. Giving the number 5, I started really well. First club ever where the fans have actually had like a song about me, and even like something like that, I was like, right, these are having me a bit. And in my first year, I got Player of the Year. We didn't have a great season as like a team, but I felt at home, and then I really loved it there. And the manager ended up leaving, and I had about 6 months left on my contract. It was in a January, and Motherwell came in for me in Scotland, and I was desperate to go. So I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to get an opportunity to play top flight football anywhere. And as a League 2 player, I was just like, I had a couple of mates that were playing for Motherwell at the time, but Stevenage didn't let me go. And then the manager changed. Dino Mamria came in. And he's a nice guy, Dino, but I just didn't. His training, honestly, he was a nice guy for me. And I've met him a few times since.
He's a brilliant guy.
I was just like, I can't be doing this.
He's a nut job.
Wasn't Wesley with him?
Yeah. Nah, he took the job on his own.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, so he come in and he offered me a new deal, and I just said, let me leave it until the end of the season. And it got to the end of the season, and Newport had spoken to me. And offered me a better contract. And if I'm honest, mate, at this point, I'd never earned like huge money through football. And I think a lot of people think, oh, you're a professional footballer.
Yeah, of course they do. Yeah.
I had like decent holidays in the summer. I had a bit of a nice car, but all my money was getting spent basically. And I was always renting. I hadn't bought a house or anything. And Newport, if I moved to Newport, it was like, right, you get relocation money, you get a better deal, you get a longer contract. And all those things started to come in my head. I was like, right, I'm planning for a family. We can maybe buy a house, we can do this, we can do that. And it was just like a fresh start. And I spoke to Flinny, and he was just like you're my number 1 target, and telling me all the things that make me feel wanted. And I went there and, as a sort of vice captain straight away, and then made captain. But it was like my time had come at Stevenage where I was like, it seems like a decent time to leave. I was a bit gutted it wasn't Motherwell that I was going to in the January. Right. But ended up signing for Newport.
So when you go there, like, obviously I know Flinny's like top guy. Like, I'd imagine like you've been made to feel welcome straight away there. Like, we've seen you had the like the FA Cup and stuff, didn't it? Obviously you scored in the FA Cup, didn't you? Who's that against?
No, I didn't score in it.
You didn't score.
No,
Unlucky Jamie.
Yeah, edit that down. Now is when we beat Leicester. We ended up playing Man City in the.
Oh, you
last
did,
16
yeah.
and that, yeah.
Yeah,
I think that was me that told him that you scored in the FA Cup. I'll take that
Was
one.
it you?
Nah, it was you. I'm taking the blame for you.
Yeah, so, like, how long were you there for?
You know what? I signed there in the July, and then I had to retire in March. So
How old
I was
are you?
only there at the time. I signed there at 27. I had to retire at 28.
Yes, that was the following
So I was
year.
only there for
you've
about
been
8
there.
months. Yeah,
Yeah,
7 or 8
just
months.
over 6
And
months.
how did that come about then? You're playing for 8 months, but where does that come in there where you had to find out you had to retire?
Literally so we played that Man City game, which was like a big, like massive one for us, obviously, big TV game. And we played Notts County 3 days later, and I was unwell like going into the game, but you know, it's like just get on with it, like it's a cold or whatever it was.
So just like illness.
Yeah, and I'd been out. I'd actually done my ankle, so I'd only just come back to feature in that Man City game. We played in this game, and this way you might have got it. I scored in the first minute. We'll give you that one. That might have been the goal you was on about.
That was the one.
There you go.
I scored in that one the first minutes, but I never felt great. But when you score, you get that buzz, and you're like, oh, I'm right now.
You get the
And we were comfortable in the game. I think we won 4-1. About 10 minutes ago, I remember sitting down, just thinking, like, my legs are gone here. I can't breathe. Came off, and I was just like, must be because I'm ill, that kind of thing. And then the next day felt horrendous. I remember taking myself to bed early, and then it just all started. Like I had this heartbeat that just was like banging through my chest, like shaking the bed almost. I was like sweating and shivering, and my wife now was 7 months pregnant, so I was like, I don't really want to tap her and say I'm panicking here, I'm struggling. So I left it, and then it got to a point I was like, you're gonna have to call an ambulance here or take me to hospital. And then I went there, and they took my heart rate, and it was like my resting heart rate was like 230, 240 beats a minute or something. So they panicked straight away. I was like, right, rushing through to resus, and they thought I had sepsis. I think you've had sepsis, yeah. They thought I had sepsis. But I had like a bit of an episode anyway, but I contracted an infection like around the heart. And when they've scanned it, they've just seen a couple of things, and they're like, he's a professional footballer. They were like, I'm not sure he's going to be able to carry on. Anyway, I was in hospital for about 10 days, and there was like a doctor in there that I got to. You're in this ward as well. I was in the Gwent Hospital in Newport. Like, I got my own room, and then I got moved onto a ward. And literally, like, I was like 4 or 5 days early, I'm playing against like Jesus and people like that, and then I'm on this ward with like 80-year-old men with like oxygen tanks in their back and all that. And I was like, what is going on here? I just like confused about the whole thing. But there was this doctor that I got quite friendly with, and he come just chat about football and stuff, and he come and sat, and he was like, look, I've seen your heart scan. He said, we'll send you to a few specialists, but he said if it comes back at what I think it is, he was like, it might be too risky for you to carry on. So I ended up, it come back, I had a bicuspid valve, which I was born with. Right. So when I was 16 at Brentford, they picked this up. So you get the heart scan. They held me back and was like, look, you can't train until we've checked this out. Sent me to all these London specialists, and they were like, no, you're good, but keep getting it scanned. But I never got it scanned. No. It was only my only time I got it scanned was a medical at Luton. So you get all these like medicals of like your knees and
they just didn't send me for more so nowadays. It becomes a thing, doesn't it? But it was never a thing back then.
But I should, off my own back, I should have been going and getting them anyway. But if I'm honest, like, I was just nervous. Like if it's Luton, for example, I remember getting the heart scan thinking, I'm going to fail this medical. Like, this is like my big move. So I didn't want to bring it up, and I was just naive. I didn't get any symptoms. So I was just like just pretend it ain't there, basically. But then a second thing had developed. It's interesting you say Connor Goldson, because he's had the operation. I have to have that operation probably in the next 3 or 4 years, but then I've got to have like a metal valve put in. So I've got to have like this big open heart surgery, take my heart valve out, put like a mechanical one in there. But at the minute haven't got to have it straight away. But they just said to me, look, it's too risky for you to continue. And at that point I was like, I'm 28, my wife's 7 months pregnant. I was like, I've got to listen to what the doctors say and that, and then to literally retire there and then.
So was there no, obviously, like you've always got an option, but was it pretty black and white in terms of, look, you can't play? Was there any, look, if you do play, this will happen? Or was it just a case of, look, it is too risky? it's down to you. Like, because I know if I was in that situation, I would just want to be told, you can't play.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want anyone to say to me, look, potentially you could play, but it's. I just want to be told, no.
Take it out of your hands.
Yeah, take it out of my hands.
Exactly.
Like, you can't play.
Yeah, exactly what I said to the surgeon and the specialist cardiologist guy. I just said, I want you to tell me. And he's basically like, if this was my son, this is what I'd say to him. Right. And I was like, right, that's enough for me. And then I'm going into these meetings with like my mum, my wife, and that, and they're like, for the sake of like 3 or 4 years possibly, or hopefully I thought I might go until I was 35, whatever it might be. They're like, your wife's pregnant, they're worried, like, you can't do this. If I did go back and play, you can't do this movement, you can't do that. So then I was just like, I'll listen to what they've got to say.
With your wife being pregnant, did that put you a little bit more pressure on yourself though, knowing that you got a baby coming as well?
Massively. So originally, like, we really tried for a baby as well. So like leading up when she was pregnant, I remember like the day and all that leading up to the game. And it was like the best thing. And then it had literally become like the biggest burden, because I was like you said, like, I've never earned money any other way. I live in Newport, away from family. I don't know where, are we going to settle in Newport? No. Where do I move now? I have no idea. Not got no, nowhere to call home, basically, no base. So then this is where like all this anxiety started coming in. And and I was panicking about that massively.
What like, I'm just trying to picture that night there where you've got to go home, being told whatever day it was, look, you can't play anymore. Like, I just don't know where, at that stage of your career as well, where you're not at the end of your career, where you've got everything in place for the future. Like, it's slap bang in the middle of career. You've just moved to a new club a couple of months before. Like, what was that night like in terms of what's going through your head?
I was doing stuff in the hospital bed, like reaching out to people. Like, I had no insurance. So the only insurance I had was through the PFA. So I had to go through sort of that process, which I was panicking about again. What I will say is, like, Newport, if I'd have retired at a different club, it might have been very different for me. But Newport, they looked after me unbelievably well. So I would have had about 15 months left of my contract, and the chairman was, and he still is, like, really good friend of mine. Go to Newport like every Christmas and spend time with him and his family. But he was like, right, that contract's yours. So he said, right, for 15 months, you haven't got to worry. So he said, like, you can use that time to find out whatever you want to get into. So that was like a massive buff up for me then. Then they did a third shirt where fans could put their names on the shirt basically and donate money, so that they raised money for me there. And then they had a testimonial game against Chelsea, like my old academy manager at Chelsea, and that is still there. So they arranged like an under-21s game at Newport. So again, they raised this money for me.
Wow.
And honestly, like, when I say I finished my career in debt, like, I remember a credit card that I racked up when I was younger, trying to give it Billy Big Spuds and take Stacey out to all these nice restaurants and hotels and get a Mercedes on a lease that I couldn't afford and all that. Made all those mistakes and was paying it back. But I think I was probably about even or just in debt when I finished my career. So if I didn't have that, then and I still really struggled in retirement, as we'll obviously come on to, but if I didn't have that, then God knows what I'd been doing. But they literally saved me, Newport.
Just on that one, just like for the process here, with obviously having 15 months left, and the chairman saying that he'll honour that. Is that not in everyone's contract that would happen, or?
I think they've got to do a minimum of 6 months. So they could have just said, right, we'll pay you 6 months and we'll save the rest of it.
So you get told you've got to retire, but you've got 18 months left on your contract.
Yeah.
And they say, that's only 6 months.
I'm pretty sure. It depends on the circumstance. I'm pretty sure it's 6 to 12. I think 6 the minimum. Yeah. I think 12. A lot might do 12.
Yeah, well. I wouldn't imagine they have to pay you.
See, I didn't know that
contract.
But like, to be fair, the chairman that has give you like a head start on like you've been told you've got to retire, which is like so like hard to take. But with that guaranteed income come for 15 months, then it gives you a chance to start planning for the future, obviously, which we're going to get into, which obviously helps.
Yeah, he's incredible. And even like in the hospital bed, I remember it was straight to like, what am I going to do next? And I remember like Chelsea was my first port of call. It was like Neil Bath, the academy manager, still there. A lot of the academy staff still there. One of my good friends, Joe Edwards, was up at the first team coach there. So I was like, messaging these saying, because at the level that I played at League Two, like the staff members, you've got like manager, assistant manager, first team coach, goalie coach, physio. That's about 5.
Yeah.
You go to an academy, there's like 50 jobs.
Yeah.
Like, so I was like, I want to get in as many places as I can and see what all these different roles are and see if something interests me. And I went back into Chelsea and they sent me on like a couple of courses, sent me on a scouting course, sent me on the task course. And again, like without realizing it, just started networking, like started speaking to people. I knew a mate of mine was at Bristol City as an analyst, went in there, had a conversation with Lee Johnson, and he was like, well, we've got a scouting job you can do on expenses until the end of the season if you want. And I was like, yep, I'll do that. And I'm still there. Yeah. Like just a part-time role at Bristol City, but just getting in and getting your face in places and trying to speak to people. I was doing that literally like in the hospital bed.
So how much do you wish that you'd have done that years before? Like this is what I talk about a lot now, and it takes something drastic like that for you to be like, right, shit, let's go on to this. Networking, talk to that club. Do you wish, looking back, even though you've turned everything around now, that years before you'd have started doing all that?
Yeah, I'd say it to a lot of young lads now.
Yeah.
Like, you don't realise the people, like if you've got a sporting director at your club, like try and figure out what his background is or what he does, or people that sponsor, there's blokes like around football clubs with millions of pounds that have got these big businesses that come in and walk past you all the time. And you just don't even bother to ask them a question or what they do here or what they do there.
Did you think you're the main man in that building, don't you?
You do.
You think I'm the player, I'm the best person in here, everyone comes to watch me, whereas in a couple of years' time, you might be that sponsor who's that multimillionaire, and you need to figure out how he's got to where he is. Yeah. Ask him questions, ask everyone questions, get about, because there are plenty of people in that building at every football club who are knowledgeable and might give you your next step into your future.
And I think one of the most important things is finding out what you're not going to do. Yeah. Like that's what I found quite quickly. It was like, right, B license. I got my B license at 24 when I was at Stevenage. Did hardly any coaching, did the logbook, all that kind of stuff like everyone does. Few hours with the under 16s, bosh, you're a B license coach. Yeah. And I was like, right, that's me sorted for retirement, put my feet up now. And that was literally my thing. And I think a lot of people still think like that. But it weren't until I come out and I did a bit of, like Newport offered me a first team coach role straight away. And I was just like, I can't coach these. Like I've just been in a changing room with them. Like, and I didn't feel ready to do that anyway. Then Gav was like, the academy manager's just left. Like, do you want to take over the academy? And I was just like, nah, I don't want to. Yeah. I don't want to on a Tuesday night be stood out in the rain. Yeah. Doing something I didn't have the bug for it. I know people have got a real bug for coaching. I didn't have it at all. But I would have probably fallen into that. I don't know what else to do, so I'll just become a coach like so many do. But yeah, I probably do wish I'd taken a bit more interest, like podcasts and stuff. Just be a bit curious, like find out about different walks of life. Yeah. If I did anything outside of football, it was watch football. If I read a book, it was like a footballer's autobiography. If I watched a documentary, it was about sport or something. It was never any kind of interest. There's so much out there now that you can learn that make you like a better person, a better player as well, I think that's as important, you know, becoming a better person. But like going back to that day when you get told you've got to retire, like all you've known is football. You go to football every day. You're a footballer. How did you find waking up the next day? Do you still go into training to keep yourself fit to be in and around the lads, or are you just at home now? That's you done? No, just at home. So they were monitoring me at first. I couldn't do any exercise, so that was like my excuse basically, just to not do anything either. I was being really busy and proactive, but then I started drinking. Like I remember that first night getting home, and I'd never been someone that drank at home, but I was like, I can actually have a few beers in the fridge now. Yeah. So I remember just getting like a crate of Coronas, putting them in the fridge, and I'd have a couple at night, and I'd feel like myself calm down, or all these worries and things like what we're talking about now. This was just racing through my head every time I sat down on the sofa. What am I going to do for money? Where am I going to live? What we're going to do here? What am I going to do in 10 years' time? All this kind of stuff. Wife's pregnant. If I had a few beers, it just like quieted everything down, managed to sleep a bit better. But those few beers ended up turning into like, you know, I'll bring a crate home and end up finishing it. Like just sitting there in front of TV, like not going out, not socializing, anything, just sitting there like sinking beers. And that just became like a habit. Put on a bit of weight, just felt like shit. So yeah, that just became a bit of a theme, like a bit of a coping mechanism for me at the time.
And did that just carry on?
Yeah, carried on. So my little one, it's weird because my little one came along. We ended up moving back around near Stevenage just through pure panic, because we were like, well, that's where we spent a lot of time, so we'll just move. We need to move.
So there's no reason.
There's just
nothing
there for us.
Right.
It's just like, we just move there because we did like it around there. So we moved there, had the little one, and I was one of these, like I was always there for her as a dad, but when she'd go to bed, that was my time to drink.
Yeah.
Or when I had a Bristol City scouting role, like hotel stay, lock myself in a room, drink, like blackout. Then it was like I really missed being around the boys. So anytime I started meeting up with friends, didn't want it to end. Last one out, started becoming a lunatic when I had a drink, which was never really me. And it just started, even like family barbecues, like I'd always be like the sensible one with a game the next day or something. I'm now the one like falling over, and can see people are like, what's happened to him a little bit. So I just got into that spiral, and that lasted over a good year.
At that point, is anyone like pulling you and saying like, this is?
Do you know what? I kept it like really secretive. So even my wife,
yeah, I was gonna say, what was your wife like? Yeah.
If I had 2 or 3 beers, like she'd be fine. But if I had 5 or 6, she'd be like, "Do you really need to open another beer?" Like, and like just give me that question. Like when someone questions your drinking and you're in a bit of denial, that is like used to really wind me up.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how did you deal with that?
And I'd be like, a bit like poor me. Like I've never been able to do this before.
Leave me alone. Let me do it.
Yeah. I'm doing nothing wrong.
Self-destruction kind of thing.
So I then started like hiding it. So I'd let her think I was having 2 or 3, and then I'd have like a beer in the garden when she went to sleep that I'd come out and bring out, or one in the freezer or a different cupboard. And the next morning, like wake up really early, like take all the empties to like the park bin.
Yeah.
So if she opened the bin at home, she wouldn't see that I'd had any drink or anything like that. So it just became like, I literally became like a liar, sneaky. So yeah, she didn't know. I think a few of the boys I used to go out with were just like, he's letting himself go a bit because he ain't got football anymore. But no one really questioned it.
You know what though? It's kind of understandable as well. Like if your mates did think that, because if I just got that bad news, maybe I'd want to go out and drink as well. But like you said, that was just the way you coped with it. But it weren't the right thing to do.
Do you know what the scary thing is? Like, I think when you speak to lads now who are still playing and they talk about retirement, the first thing they say is, I can't wait to finish. Think you can just have a beer when you want.
Yeah.
Like, and don't get me wrong, I've said it.
Yeah.
But think about it. All you're looking forward to from finishing your career is having a beer when you want.
Yeah.
Like, so you're sat home there thinking, no training tomorrow, have a beer. No training tomorrow, have a beer. Your life then, instead of waking up 7 a.m. every day, going to training, keeping fit, is wake up and have a beer. Yeah. Like, not, I can't wait to finish football and start my new business or do this, and this. It's just, I can't wait to have a beer on a Friday, no game. Yeah. Like, I think because we're that's players, a scary thought.
I think a lot of people in football feel like they're depriving themselves of alcohol. And then you get to a summer and then the lads just go mental. And then it's like, right, don't really drink that much during the season or every other weekend or whatever it is. So you feel like you're depriving yourself, but it's the way we look at alcohol like in society in general, basically. It's like we associate it with having a good time or relaxing or whatever it might be. But I think a lot of lads in football think that. Like when I finish, I can't wait to do this, and that only lasts for so long until it becomes.
As footballers, we do get a bit of a bad reputation when drinking comes into it, because like we completely change. Yeah. Like we're wild compared to like other people, because we don't get to do it as much as everyone else. So when the summer holidays do come, like we go crazy and we act stupid and that, and
I feel like everyone does. It's just, I just feel like it's highlighted more.
I think if you look at the general person, they're drinking 3 or 4 times a week. Oh yeah. Like they don't have to do it all at once. Yeah. And then don't do it again.
We do it all at once.
Where like you look at like a Christmas do, like get to like deal. September, the lads are talking about it. It's a massive build up, and some of the stuff I've seen on Christmas do,
crazy.
It's mad. It's like mental.
I'm doing a Christmas do.
I'm probably up to it.
But it is. It's because like there's this massive build up, and like you're in a pressurized environment, and you don't get to do this. And then it's like one time you've actually got permission, because even when you go out on like a Saturday night, there's always something in the back of your mind that's like, shouldn't really be drinking here, or if we've been beaten, or I want to keep my head down around fans, whatever it might be. But when you've actually got a bit of permission, like, right, lads, you can go and have a drink. If you go on a pre-season tour, and the manager goes, go on then, lads, off you go. It's like, what?
It's like, right, it's like, who can be the loudest, who can be the hilarious.
And then there's that sort of macho environment where you're one-upping each other and that kind of thing.
I think I had that, like, when I was younger. I always want to be, like, the one that makes everyone else have a good time and stuff like that. So I want to be, like, the class clown kind of thing, where I wanted to make fun of me to make everyone else laugh and try and not fit in, because I did fit in with everyone, like, I really did, but I wanted everyone else to have a good time, so I used to use me and my other mates, for example, to make everyone else laugh. When I grew up, I don't do that.
So how long when you're drinking there, like, how long did it take you to realise, look, this is an issue, or was it someone else that realised you had the issue, which then made you try and get an intervention?
A little bit of both. Like, the pandemic obviously happened during this time as well. So when we get locked down, like, that's when my drinking, like, escalated a lot, because it was like the whole country was basically drinking.
Everyone was doing it. It
was like summer, and I remember my drinking was getting earlier. I'd never, like, got to a stage where I was waking up and drinking. But you do stuff in the morning. I was still working and doing stuff online. Get to, like, midday, and you'd be like, oh, I fancy a beer. And once I had one, like, I weren't one that would have a beer and then, 2 hours later I'm having dinner and drinking a soft drink. Like, if I have one, then I'm drinking, like, all night. If I don't have any, then I'm fine. So that's where it was. Like, I was like, I can't be like an alcoholic or, like, addicted or anything, because I can go weeks without it.
Denial.
But when I have one, it's like we said, like, if I'm having one, I'm going all out. But there was the pandemic, which, like, started escalating a bit. I was obviously hiding it. I was just making stupid decisions and mistakes and arguing with my wife, getting lost on the way home and just being stupid with mates and waking up just thinking, what the fuck am I doing? And it came to a point, it was Father's Day. So obviously, like, a day to celebrate me. It was my first Father's Day. So we had all family round. We'd moved up north at this point. And I was, like, sneaking red wine. Like, everyone was drinking red wine, but my mum had started, she's like, oh, you drink fast, or you having another one? Like, just give me them little comments. When you're in denial, it's like, leave me alone. So I'd go and, like, pour my own ones and just pretend I was drinking like everyone else. And she caught me there and just was like, what are you doing? I was just like, oh, nothing, just having another drink, like, leave me alone. And then I had an argument with my wife, and I was drunk, and I went upstairs and I passed out in the bed, and I thought it was the morning, but it was like an hour later. So it was like 9 o'clock at night still. And she come up and she was like, what's going on with you? And I just broke down and just said, look, I'm hiding drinking. I want to stop, but I don't feel like I can. And just completely broke down to her and my mum. And I was like, from here on in, like, I'm going to get counselling. So I spoke to Sport and Chance and the PFA. And I was like, from here on in, I don't want to drink. It got to about 2 weeks, and I was like, right, I think I've got this under control now. Like, I'm just going to have 2. So, because I was thinking, all the things that were going through my head was like holidays I'm going to have, or parties I'm going to go to, weddings. I was associating all that. Forget all the crap that it caused me. I was just focusing on the good times that it could bring me, because it has brought me some decent times over the years. And I was like, I'm going to miss out on all of this. So I was like, right, I'll set myself a 2-drink limit. Did that for another couple of weeks while I'm getting the counselling and stuff. And then there was just one day out in the summer, went out with 2 mates, must have had 2 pints in the first 20 minutes, and then someone bought me another one. I was like, no, I'm all right. I was like, go on. And I was like, I'll have 3 today then. And that night, just paralytic, doing shots, getting home late, argument. And then my wife was just like, she basically just was like, how could you do that after everything you've said and all that? And anyway, the next day, it's like a bit of, I've gone up quite spiritual, and I think, like, things are put in your path for a reason and stuff. But about a few days before that, I was in a place where I was like, I don't know what I want to do going forward. Bit of a loss of identity of being a footballer and that. And I was looking into, like, becoming an agent. I'd had a few agencies approach me and stuff. I typed in on Amazon, like, books about being an agent, and one of them came up, and it was like how to be an agent. And there's a cricketer called Luke Sutton. Never been a cricket fan. I had no idea who this guy was. So I bought it. And the next morning, after I was hungover here on that last time I drank, when I was, like, paralytic and had a row, I had to drive to Morecambe the next day to watch them play a pre-season game. And that book had just been delivered. So I put it on my passenger seat, and I had like an hour and a half drive, hungover. I was like, let me see who this guy is. Luke Sutton. Typed it in on a podcast. Thought I was going to hear him talk about being an agent, and he started talking about he's 10 years sober, alcoholic. he literally is like he told my life story.
Really?
Yeah. And like I connected with that podcast so much. I remember I still got the messages on my phone. Like I said to my wife, like, that's it. Like I've just listened to this guy. I can't moderate. Like, I have to, cut alcohol out altogether. And honestly, since that podcast, that was like a turning point for me. I've never touched a drop since.
Wow.
And he's become like a real good mate of mine.
Really?
Got in contact with me after.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's good.
I meet him regularly.
Yeah.
Like, top guy.
So do you have like a mentor? Because I know a couple of people who like are completely sober now have had really bad pasts, and they have mentor figures that they check in with, that give them support when they need it. They go to regular sort of meetings and stuff like that. Is there anyone that is that person for you that you need like around you to support in case you're going through times where like you might need that little boost to get you back on track?
I had the counselling at first.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be some name dropping here. There's a few. But I had, when I retired, I did the playoffs for the Sky Sports and the media, and it was with Jim White. And then I sat with Jim for like the game, and we like got really close and stuff, started messaging. And he put a video out on TalkSport saying he was 10 years sober. And I didn't have a clue. And I messaged him and said, I've stopped drinking. This is the issues I've had. And we started talking. He became a real mentor for me.
Right.
And he said, after about 4 months in, he was like, we're doing a thing on Wayne Rooney. He'd been drinking. He was like, we're going to talk about alcohol. He's like, do you want to come in the studio and talk about it? And I was like, it's only my mum and my wife that know anything about me drinking.
Right.
Like, I've stopped drinking. I've had issues with it. None of my mates, not my brother. He was like, do you want to come on the radio and talk about it? And I was like, I don't know. I said, I'm working like with academies, and I think they'll look at me a bit different and all that. And he was like, no, I think, you've got a powerful story. So I went on there and I literally just opened up on the radio, started talking about coming out the game and drinking at home and all that. And the response out in the back, like messages I got and people that started reaching out to me or saying, I'm going to stop drinking, or like Luke had done for me in that podcast, I was doing for someone else. And then I started sharing loads on social media, started just meeting different people. So I'd done about a year sober, been out talking about it, and it become like a big part of who I was and what I was doing. And then I met Brian McDermott, who's the old Leeds and Reading manager.
You are a name dropper?
Yeah, you wait until the next name.
Who's coming next?
You wait until Brian. So he got in contact with me just through LinkedIn. I started posting stuff, and he hadn't actually come out about his own drinking.
Right.
And he was like, I've looked at your story, and he's like, I'm thinking about telling my own story and coming out and telling people that, I've had real trouble drinking and I'm 7 years sober. So me and him developed like a little bit of a friendship, and he's like, honestly, top guy. Like he's in his 60s, and I'm like 30. We go, like, me and him meet up all the time. He's like a real good mate of mine now. Yeah. And that is random to say, like the old manager.
You won't think it, would you?
It just goes to show, though, like speaking out and helping other people, it just shows.
You just don't know.
All these different people just start coming in. So then I met Brian. We started doing quite a bit together. And he was like, I'm going to a retreat at the weekend. I've been asked to talk with Russell Brand. And I read Russell Brand's book. And I've always quite liked him. Like he's 20 years sober. So I went along with Brian, met Russell, got talking to him, and then the next day he was like, I'm hosting this thing at he owns a pub, incidentally, like an old abandoned pub where he does all his work. But I went there.
Also, it's not a functioning pub.
Not a functioning pub, it's not like a studio and that, and it was an AA meeting. Right. And I'd never been to like an Alcoholics Anonymous. I'd never said I'm an alcoholic. I just said I was like a grey area drinker. I had a bit of an issue with alcohol. I was like, alcoholics are like the blokes that get up in the morning swigging vodka.
The ones on the street.
Yeah. And so I was like, when they're going around saying my name's such and such, I'm an alcoholic, I was like, what am I going to do here? Yeah. And I went along with it, and I was just like, my name's Fraser, I'm an alcoholic. And honestly, I went to this meeting, and it's one of the best things I've ever done. Really? And it's weird because most people go in there on day one like desperate to get sober, and I remember going in there saying, I'm quite confused because I'm a year sober, and I've got no desire to drink again. I don't feel like I ever want to drink. So I was like, I feel like a bit of a fraud here. But I went there, like, and it's just like a group of people opening up, talking in front of each other, helping each other out. You get like a sponsor. So it is, if I feel like drinking, I'll ring him. Right. That's never why I ring. No. Like, it's just like alcohol is like the solution to the fucking madness in your head. For other people, it's gambling. For other people, it's whatever. So you take the alcohol away, you're still left with all that in your head. So it's just like a program to work through that and people to talk to, and it is an unbelievable program.
Really?
But if it weren't for like him taking me along, I'd have never gone into it. And I'm really comfortable talking about it now. So I go along, I attend meetings, I try and help other people get sober. And it's like a real community. And my perception was that alcoholic, like scruffy bloke on the park bench. Like some of the people in these meetings are the most successful people.
I'd imagine,
and they are the most successful people I've ever met.
Like
millionaires, business owners, restaurant owners, pop stars. Like
I think them people, because they've got so much more to lose, they're under so much more pressure. And I think that's why your story will relate to a lot of people in football, because of the pressure that people are under in football, to then come out, and you mentioned it before about having a purpose. You come out and you suddenly are nobody. You've no purpose, like you've no focus. Your focus was just wake up and drink, because what else am I going to do? I've no full-time job. I've no purpose moving forward of who I want to be yet, because you're not planned for that. So I think they're the people that struggle the most. And as you said there, the perception of people who drink is completely different to what you would expect.
I think I worry about athletes, and there's like obviously like some shocking statistics in retirement and that. But if you think about it, like we've like even like, you know, we didn't make it to like top Premier League and international, but we're in like the 0.01%.
Oh yeah.
So we've had to do things like differently than a lot of people, which sometimes brings like extreme behaviors. Like as a kid, like I had some extreme behaviors. Like there weren't many other kids going out running laps in the estate at 7 years old, or not eating McDonald's, or not doing this, or stretching, or drinking water, or making sure everything's perfect, or analysing things. Like the average kid doesn't really do that. But if you're, and a lot of footballers might not have done it, but a lot of footballers have, and a lot of athletes have. They're like really dedicated and driven, and they've got extreme behaviour. So if you would eat a McDonald's, if my wife eats McDonald's, she gets no sense of guilt whatsoever. If I eat it, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have ate that. I'm gonna have to run in the morning.
We all do.
That's mad,
like,
because
I'll only have one on a Saturday after a game, and even then I wake up on a Sunday and I think, shouldn't have done that last night.
Yeah, that's mad, because like when I got injured, I never eat McDonald's or anything like that. But when I got injured, I had this like real urge while I was off sitting at home every day on my own. I really wanted a McDonald's breakfast. And I was just telling myself, and I was saying to Ellie, my wife, I was like, I'm getting a Mackey's breakfast today, and she's vegan, she doesn't eat meat. So she was like, why? And I was like, just really fancy it.
Because I can.
I had one, because while I was off, I thought I'll have one because I won't feel any guilt or anything like that. And then I just thought, why have I just had that? I didn't really want it. I'd done it because I could, because I was at football. And I was just like teasing myself by saying I want it. And then when I finally had it, I was like, oh.
My addiction, honestly, my addiction swapped over to food. So it's like literally like the same, like eat really healthy. If I have one bit of chocolate, right, I'm eating every single bit of chocolate I can see in the house. And then the next day it's like, right, I wake up and I'll beast myself. And it's like this mental thing that's going on in your head. But there's always like an underlying issue. Usually it just comes out in a different form. So again, even like a sponsor now, like, or a mentor, wherever it is, like if I'm like, why have I just had 4 chocolate brownies in a day, and then I've not eaten for 2 days because I'm saying I'm fasting? He's like, well, what's going on here? And then you just slowly start to figure out
the answer.
That's probably why. But I've still got like some extreme behaviors. Like I can do aerobic exercise, and now I'm like, I want to do 100-mile like ultra marathon and all that kind of stuff. And then my wife would be like, you've got a heart condition. Like,
what are you doing?
Just relax. But I think a lot of athletes do have that kind of extreme sort of obsessive behaviors.
So do you think now, obviously, that you found your purpose out of football now? Like, do you think you found that drive again for something? Because I always talk about careers, don't I? And as we touched on with coaching before, I think after football, you have to go into something that you're passionate about. We've only done something from so young that we have loved, dedicated every minute to. I don't think as an athlete you can go into just any career. I think you have to find that purpose, that passion, and go into something that you are going to dedicate your next 30, 40 years to, as you have done the first 30 or so. Like, do you think now that you found your purpose of what you want to do?
I do, but I think it'll always change. Like if you told me 5 years ago I'd be doing what I'm doing now, not a chance. No. And then in 5 years' time I might be doing something completely different. But I think as long as it gives you that purpose, because I'm exact same. If you got put in like a mundane 9 to 5 that you're not enjoying, I think you'll then start seeking that excitement and that adrenaline elsewhere. And that's where probably like drink and drugs and women and all that kind of stuff start coming into it for people. But if you can find it in your work, like waking up and like at the minute, and it is probably the biggest blessing I've got, like at one point I was waking up like dragging myself out of bed thinking, what is the point? Like I had some real like dark thoughts. But now like my alarm goes off and I'm buzzing to get up. Like I'm buzzing with my little morning routine that I do. I'm excited for what I can do in the day. And there's a lot of ex-Premier League players I've spoken to and worked with and stuff. They've got all the money in the bank, which is something that I always wanted, but they haven't got that purpose and that drive. They've got a nice house, but they wake up and missus goes off here, kids are in school, just sat there like, what do I do now? Everyone used to love me. Now I'm just sat in my pants watching telly. Like
I'm just a normal guy.
And it is like money can't buy that feeling. No. But you can start working on that during a career, and even if it's something that doesn't bring you financial gain, like some of the sobriety stuff that I do, no money involved in it, but I get such purpose in that. It's
purpose and it's networking. As you said there, you're doing something now which you love, enjoy, passionate about, but you also don't know where you'll be next year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, but you're going to continue to network in that time, and you will find that path. And that is the message for people in football, isn't it? That network while you're in there. You're the biggest probably you will ever be whilst you're in the sport. Network now, do your education now. As you said before, you wanted to find what you didn't like, and that was coaching. Get yourself out there and do things. And networking is a massive thing for that, I think, to take you on a path.
Just being like a good lad and a good pro as well. Like if I look back now, and if I was a dick at Chelsea and I rang them up, you know, if they released me at 16, I was like, you're all this, you're all that, or I just tossed it off completely when I was there. Bad attitude, didn't want to be there. I can't then at 28 ring them up and go, oh, actually, can you help me out now? I need your help. And this is what some lads are doing. Like they'll completely be so unprofessional. Then they get to a stage where they think, oh, you know, I need to speak to that person, but they've burnt that bridge. And it's like, why should I help you when you acted like this way? But if you've got like Gav at Newport, like I was a good guy with him, like got on really well, professional. So yeah, he wants to help you. He wants to help out decent people. But so I think that's one aspect of it, just like being a good pro, being a good person, not burning bridges. Like there's times where you've probably wanted to, or you've wanted to come out and lash out because a coach has done this or a coach has done that. But it's like, you know, I'll remember that, but I'll keep it under wraps for now and not retaliate. And then networking is good. Like I do it now. The amount of ex-teammates I've got now, and it makes you feel old. Often they're coaching here or they're an agent there, and because I go to a lot of games, I see a lot of them. And then things like LinkedIn and getting yourself out there like this, getting your name out there, people pick up. I sat the other day at Blackpool match and the Rotherham manager was there, Matty Taylor. Literally came up to me and was like, Fraser Franks. I was like, yeah. He went, oh, I see your stuff on LinkedIn. He's like, keep going. Same thing with the link, and like these people, they'd never liked or commented, but there's people that are listening, people that are watching that, you know, are taking note of what you're doing.
I bang on about LinkedIn all the time to lads at training. I'll sit on the bus on it and they'll always batter me and they'll say, oh, fucking look at this profile. What the fuck's this? Like, what even is this? And instead of taking time to actually get to know, and I try and say, look, this is important. Trust me, this is a great tool for you, because even now, I'm not looking for a job. I'm not trying to get into another career. I know what I'm doing at the minute, and I'm still playing full time. But I have so many people message me, offering me opportunities, or do you want to come do this? Come and do this, or we'd like you to come and do this with us. Get out there. Like no matter who you are in the football league, get out there. Get yourself on LinkedIn. Start talking to people. And I think if you think you're too cool for it, and it isn't something that is for you, believe me, in a couple of years' time, you'll change your perception of that. And as we always say, the transition process by doing little things like that will be so much easier for you.
I've had some unbelievable like talking opportunities and events that I've gone to and spoken at through LinkedIn, and it's just like and I'm someone, and you can see people on LinkedIn that are like, I've got this big strategy of I've got to post every single day and I've got to force it. It's like, if I feel like I've got something to say, I'll say it. But then if it goes 2 weeks and I've not posted anything, I'm not like, oh no, I'm going to be forgotten about, worrying about all that side of it.
No.
But it's just like, if you've got a point you want to put out there and you put it out there and the right people see it, honestly, like
it
that
relates to
platform
someone.
just speeds up. Yeah.
I'm sorry, lads, I've been really quiet about this LinkedIn thing because I don't have one. So I think I'll be creating an account when I get home. add me on LinkedIn.
Do you know what? I see a lot of managers and people in football they don't want to be on social media.
No.
So LinkedIn is like their version.
It's
of
an in
social
between,
media.
isn't it? Yeah.
So it's like a professional account that they can have and they can sort of have a little look at.
Yeah.
But that's where you get a lot of opportunities off that.
You do. Yeah. That'd be my one piece of advice to you, John. I
Thanks.
think I've probably told you in the past, and you were probably one of them people saying, "Shut the fuck."
He always slags me off him, you know. Always slags me off. That's good.
So, what I want to sort of wrap it up with what do you see for the future for you? Like as we just touched on there, look, things can change. Like everyone has goals, aspirations. Like where do you see your future going in terms of where you're at the minute? What does it look like for you?
I'm quite comfortable with uncertainty now. So that's what used to make me drink, like not knowing.
Yeah.
What's next?
That was like not knowing what's next. Even when I was a player, like contract coming up at the end of the year, that used to give me like anxiety. But if I had a 2-year, I was like a bit calm. But becoming a bit comfortable now, and not knowing.
See, I love that. Like that is the number one thing for me. That's the only thing that eats me up. Uncertainty. Like even though I'm planning ahead and I've got all sorts of stuff going on,
you still don't know.
I still don't know. I still don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
You never know.
No. So the fact that you're in that situation is so good.
You still get them days where you're like, oh shit, what's going to happen in a year's time, or what if this doesn't work? But it's like becoming more comfortable with it. But no, I'm doing a lot in professional sport at the minute, going around talking about alcohol. But it's not just about alcohol. And I was saying to you in the car, like, I'm not saying like everyone's got to go sober. That's like the last message I'm trying to give. But I'm trying to help people not hit rock bottom. So I think there's a lot you can do. Like if you saw me towards the end of my career, so at Newport, then lads would have seen me on a few nights out and they probably could have gone, not sure about this. Like that behaviour there isn't matching up with who he actually is. Yeah. So there probably were a few warning signs when I had a drink, or if I had a shit game, I was like, right, I need to go and have a drink. Yeah. Or if I had, got criticised or was at the team, it was like, right, I need a drink. So that was starting to build up. So if I can start planting them seeds for people, it means they ain't got to, get to retirement and then do what I did basically. Yeah. But I count myself really lucky. Like I stopped it really early. There are people that are out there drinking and they never really, they never really stop. They just carry on that cycle for the next 20 years and lose their missus and kids and house and all the rest of it. So I still want to do a lot in alcohol, but I don't want it to be like everything that I am. Yeah. So I'm launching a new platform with an ex-teammate of mine actually. We lost, again, networking and social media and that, but we lost quite a bit of contact. We were at AFC Wimbledon together. He then went off to Bournemouth and he stopped playing at 28 just through choice. He was at Gillingham, fell out of love with the game. He was a personal trainer before he played football. Opened up a gym, and it's done really well, and he's opened up a second one. And then we've just got back in contact, got a lot in common, and we're launching a platform called Be Limitless. And like the whole thing about it is we're trying to get people moving, trying to get people outside, trying to get people to conquer like any limiting beliefs they've got. So I had a limiting belief that if you're sober, you're going to be boring, or that kind of thing. Or I can't do that because I've had this upbringing, or I can't go from being a professional footballer to doing that because no one else does it. And it's like we've got all these little stories in our head of why we can't do stuff. And until someone breaks it or challenges you to do it, like you don't realise, actually, I can do that, or I can step out of the comfort zone and do that. So we're doing a lot around. There's a lot. I'm becoming like a cold water coach. I never used to like ice baths or anything, but
the Hoffman.
Helping people do that. Getting kids outside is a big one. We both got kids, and we know the stat that I saw today is like 3/4 of kids spend less time outside than prison inmates.
Wow, that's scary.
It's crazy.
I have that fear about kids.
So we're doing a lot around that. We're doing a lot around sort of men's mental health alongside the physical health. And again, what I was saying to you, like the physical element that you've got as an athlete, like I think too many people, like you're saying with alcohol, think I'm going to get to the end of my career and be able to have a beer. A lot of us think I'm going to get to the end of the career and I ain't got to train anymore. Yeah, but it's so important. It's so important. Yeah. Like a lifelong athlete is something that I talk about quite a bit. Like you should want to be an athlete for life, like not just for what it does for your body, but your head. Like that's what got me basically sober. Yeah. Waking up, having a morning routine, getting back in the gym, feeling good about myself again. And so we're launching that soon, and that should be like an exciting thing we're doing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So let's finish then on, because this is what we like to do, don't we? With guests. One for you, I think, one piece of advice that you give to any player that's still in football, that's either considering the transition process or currently going through it. Your career was sort of ended suddenly without choice. But what would your one piece of advice be to someone considering the transition?
I think a big one for people in football is like not worry about what everyone else thinks. Like don't worry about being called busy, because the best people usually are the ones that get called busy. Not worrying. I've seen lads get on a coach, and I've seen one lad in particular get on a coach with a coursework book, and a manager go, "Carl, you want to work on your first touch first?" Like, and those kind of comments in football and that banter and that, it's like,
how about that?
It's like you'll get those comments, but it's like being comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And I think understanding who you are as a footballer and as a person. Like, I do this exercise when I go in and talk to academy lads, and I get them to introduce themselves and talk about themselves for 10 seconds, and they'll say, "My name's Danny, I'm a right back, used to play for Man U, now I'm at Tranmere." And everything's like football. And you say, right, what would your nan say about you? Would she say you're a number 10? It's like, you're more like, you've got all these other aspects about you. So start exploring them a little bit more.
Human being,
who you are as a human being, as well as a footballer, and realizing like just how short of a career it is. Like the average male in this country lives to 81. So if you've got a football career, it's like such a small chunk of your life. And then one thing I really feared was getting to the end of that career and just talking about, I used to play football, being that bloke in the pub. It's like, I used to be a footballer. It's like, what do you do now? No, nothing. Just used to do that.
Still living on that.
And then recreating like a new persona now. Like, I love, like, Gary Lineker presents Match of the Day. Like, my nephew's 10. I had no idea that Gary Lineker played football. I'm like, that's class. Like, he's completely shifted away from being the ex-footballer and talking about the glory days. He's like,
he's now successful in his own right,
and you can do that in all different avenues. I think you can start looking at retirement in a different way, looking at like being excited about it. There's so much you can do in retirement that you can't do during a career. But I think we just look at it as like this ticking time bomb. Got to stay in the game as long as possible and drag out every last penny that we can, and then it's like back in the real world where it's like, actually, if you do things properly, you can really look forward to retirement.
And lastly, mate, your biggest high in football?
Biggest high?
Yep.
Me and you and Marbella. Biggest high. I think it's when I got released from Brentford and went to AFC Wimbledon. Winning the playoff final with them in that following season, because manager released me at Brentford and was like, I think you find your level in non-league. And that little comment like niggled at me, and then to get back in the Football League the year after, and we beat Luton on penalties, and we had a really good group. I loved my time there. So that was probably a big high for me as well. Yeah.
Perfect.
Nice. Right, Fraser. Honestly, I've absolutely loved it. So thanks for coming, mate. As I said, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Fraser. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Keep up good work.